The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, I say to you that listen, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other also. And from anyone who takes away your coat, do not withhold even your shirt. Give to everyone who begs from you, and if anyone takes away your goods, do not ask for them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? For even sinners do the same. If you lend to those from whom you hope to receive, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners to receive as much again. But love your enemies, do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. Your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High. For he is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For the measure you give will be the measure you get back. The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. Well, what a hard teaching today. Did you listen to Jesus? So difficult. So you go to Jesus and you ask him the question, what do I do? What do I do with that man? You want to turn it down a little, please. What do I do with that man or woman who gets under my skin? Like Pat. And you know, there's always be someone who gets, yeah. There will always be someone in your life that gets under your skin, knowingly or unknowingly. Sometimes they don't have to do anything. You just don't like them, don't like their face, or you don't like their color. But there will always be someone who gets under your skin. There will always be someone who gets under your skin. And so you go to Jesus, what do I do with that guy? Get rid of him? What if he's in your family? Avoid all family meetings or gatherings, and then there's a funeral. What do? You don't go to the funeral. Or what if he's a colleague at work, and you have to show up every Monday and you see that guy? And so you go to Jesus, what do I do? And Jesus tells you the story that we read in today's first reading. The story of two men. One was a king, Saul, and the other, David, at the time was not a king, but later became a king. At the time, Saul was the king, and he fell out of favor with God. And God took the throne away from him and gave it to David. Of course, you know what's going to happen. Saul became very envious of David. And he decided, which is what we always do, that he was going to destroy David. And so he picks 3,000 men, can you imagine, to kill one person. Do you need 3,000 soldiers? But he wanted to be sure he got David. And he goes after David. And David was running for his life. And guess what? One night, God made Saul to be really tired. There's nothing God cannot do. Saul was exhausted with all of his army. All of them were tired. And God put them into a very deep sleep. And Saul had his sword, or his spear that he was going to use. He said, I'm going to kill him with my own hands. And he put the sword or the spear in the ground, and then he went to sleep. And all of his soldiers went to sleep. And guess who appears in the middle of the night while Saul and all his soldiers were snoring? David. And one of David's followers said, can you see? God is already fighting your enemy. Look at him. It's in your hands now. Let's take his spear and use the spear to kill him. What should I do with the man that gets under my skin? Destroy him. That's what human nature says. What did David do? David's response to the man or his supporter was, no, I can't do that for two reasons. One, I can't kill, shed no blood. Two, this man is God's anointed. So why would I touch him? And what did David do? He took the spear, went and stood up on a high mountain, and when Saul woke up, he couldn't find his spear, it was gone, and he was freaking out. And then he heard David called from afar and said, look at your spear, it's in my hands. And Saul said, whoa, 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 there's a problem here. And David said, I had all the opportunity to destroy you, but I will not treat you the way you treat me. And that changed Saul's attitude towards David. At the end of the reading, you saw him blessing David. What should I do with that man that gets under my skin or the woman that gets under my skin? You will not like Jesus' response. He says, love them. Seriously? When I read this reading last Sunday afternoon, I said, Jesus, are you kidding? Are you kidding me here? Are you serious? He says, yeah, I am. Love them. And he gives us two reasons in today's gospel reading why we should love them. One, because we get under God's skin every time, every day. I'm sure today already you've gotten under God's skin. But what does he do? He never destroys you. He shows you mercy. And he said, if you have received mercy, you must show mercy. And then the other reason why he says, love them, is because that's the way your father behaves. And if you're a true son of your father, you want to behave like your father. And if your father is merciful and loving, we saw that on the cross, he says you have no right to behave differently. Because when you behave like your father, everyone knows who your father is. If you're a follower of Jesus, he says, you've got to do what I do. Because that's what it means, becoming more like me so that you can make heaven. Have we been doing this? Of course, the answer is no. This is one of the Sundays where you wish today's gospel reading was not read. When I read it too, I was wishing it's one of those Sundays when I'm on holiday, then I don't have to preach it because it's the hardest. But that's what Jesus calls us to. And when I was preparing my homily, I decided to gauge myself on a scale of 1 to 10. How forgiving am I? And I was trying to be very honest and yet very generous. And the farthest I got to was 3 out of 10. And that's even being very generous. I'm sure most times I'm 1 or even 0. It's so hard to forgive someone that gets under your skin. But Jesus calls us to do that. It's so hard to follow Jesus' teaching. But how can we make heaven if we don't follow his teaching? And the truth is, he gives us grace. So he doesn't ask us to forgive, and he makes it difficult for us to forgive. He asks us to forgive, and he gives us grace to do it. The problem is, because we don't want to do it, we don't ask for the grace, or we don't use the grace. Did you listen to today's second reading? Paul says it clearly. He says there are 2 Adams. One was the Adam of the flesh, and one is the heavenly one. And he says we belong to the second Adam, who is the man of heaven. Because our ultimate goal and purpose in life is not to be a mother, be a grandmother. That's not just it. Our ultimate goal in life is to please God because in pleasing God, we make heaven. And so I'd like to switch gears a little bit today and talk about calibration. You're probably wondering, how does that fit into spirituality? How does that fit into spirituality? Calibration. So going back to what I just said, are you doing what Jesus asked of you? Can you honestly say that you're following Jesus' teaching? If you're a guy like me, the answer is no. And so what do we need? We need to be recalibrated. And I looked at that word to look at what it means, and I'll just read that out. I have my notes here. It says, calibration means to use a measuring instrument. Just leave it. To use a measuring instrument to determine the deviation of an equipment from its original standard, with the goal of determining what is needed to correct it. So let's bring that into spirituality. Jesus calls you into a relationship with him. He makes you a new person after the second Adam. And he puts you in this spot where you look like him, where hopefully he comes back to meet you and he takes you home. But do we stay in this spot? No, we don't. What happens? Because we face the bumps of life, like when you're traveling. Thank God, driving today is a lot smoother than it has been the last 3 weeks. Honestly, there were days I was driving the last 3 weeks and it felt like I was driving on an African road because there were more bumps than anything because of how hard the ice on the ground is. It's melting now, so it's a lot smoother driving. In life, we experience the bumps of life, the storms of life. Temptations come our way. And what do those bumps do like it does to a car? It shakes, and eventually what's happening to us spiritually, we're getting off track. We're getting off track. There needs to be a time for us to get back into position that Jesus wants us to be. That's what I refer to as spiritual calibration. How can that happen? Well, I have good news for you this morning. It's possible. How? That's what I want to tell you. 5th of March, 2025 is the beginning of a season of calibration. What is that season called? Lent. So this morning, I know you're very organized people. You love your Google Calendar, and everything has to make it there. I'm calling your attention to Lent 10 days before. Before, I used to do it few days before, and people said, I just forgot it's Lent. Only if I knew. Okay, you got 10 days now. You have no excuse. Put it in your calendar. Calibration season begins on the 5th of March for 6 weeks. And what does Jesus do at that time? With his grace, he cleans us up and he moves us back to the position he wants us to be. The calibration does not happen by your own power or your own strength. You don't need to do anything. All you need to do is let Jesus do it. Your car is dirty. Your soul is dirty. Jesus is the washman. Let him do the washing. And he will take the season of Lent to wash you, to prepare you like a bride, so that you will look like him. And when you die, his Father can recognize your soul because your soul looks like his Son. Now, how will this happen as a parish? That's my next slide. There are lots of activities again. You know, I always do that, and I'll continue to do that till I leave here. Hopefully, lots of activities this Lent. And we're introducing new things. You don't have to do all of them. But I just want to put out so many options so that you can say, okay, this is the one I'm going to do. And thank you to those 103 people, unbelievable, who have signed up for Rescue Project. 103. That's unbelievable. And we're still taking sign up today. People can still register today. 103. Thank you for taking that bold step. So what are the activities there for us, other than things that you can do on your own? Those of you who follow the Hallow app, you see lots of things ready for Lent. Other than that, as a parish, we will have weekly confessions. So half an hour before Mass every day, I'll be sitting down there for confession. Why do you need confession? Because it's confession that washes you and calibrates you. So you've no excuse in 6 weeks not to go to confession. And don't leave it to the last minute. You've no excuse. So you got all those opportunities there. And please, when you come to confession, because there'll be lots of people coming, please don't turn it to a place for counseling. Just come in, confess your sins, receive your penance. If you want counseling, just send me a text and we can talk about counseling, okay? So that I can hear as many confessions as possible. And I like to end confessions 5 minutes before Mass so that I'm not starting Mass late. Secondly, Stations of the Cross every Friday at 6:20. What is the Station of the Cross about? For those of us who are not used to this, it's a privilege we get during Lent to walk the same steps that Jesus took in order to win us salvation. And we receive grace by doing that. If you've never tried it, there are 6 of them this year, and you probably want to come to one and just feel, what is it like? It's very prayerful. And I'm sure if you started, you'll be stuck. You'll not want to miss one. What else do we have? We have the St. Bridget prayer before Mass to replace the Rosary on Sunday. So at 8:35, we'll start the St. Bridget prayer, which is a very powerful prayer. We pray that prayer always during Lent. What else do we have? Weekly adoration. So we used to have adoration from 6 to 7 on Thursdays. I want to introduce more time this year. So adoration will be from 5 p.m. Listen to me. 5 p.m. until what? Time? 10 p.m. So if you are the guy that walks in town, oh yeah, I can't just before I get home and I have grab supper, adoration is over. No, I don't think you eat till 10 p.m. So you have time. And it's every Thursday during Lent. Why do you need adoration? You should know why. What happens in adoration? Jesus sits on the altar and is waiting for you. And you're struggling with being lonely and you don't have anyone in your life, and yet Jesus is waiting for you and not coming to him. Are you actually lonely or you're choosing loneliness? So that's an opportunity, but there's even a bigger one coming, which is new and probably new to a lot of you. On the 4th of April and the 5th of April, we're going to have what we call perpetual adoration. So what that means is for 24 hours, can you imagine that? 24 hours, Jesus is going to be on the altar. From 5 p.m. on the 4th, which is a Friday, until 5 p.m. the next day, which is a Saturday. So even midnight, Jesus will be here. We're going to tell you how to sign up for that. And when I was thinking of this, when God revealed this to me, the image I saw were families, people bringing their children, even though they were sleeping, and just getting them to lie on the pews or on the bench while they were spending time as a family with Jesus. Next week, we'll tell you how to sign up for that. For Thursdays, the sign-up sheet is already in the hall, so you're welcome to sign. And if it's only one Thursday in a week you can do in the 6 weeks, you don't have to do all 6. But just come and spend time with Jesus. And then the final one is the one we've been talking about, the Rescue Project. If you're still sitting on the fence, you've heard about this, this is your last chance. Remember what I said the first week? There is no better time to start a relationship. And guess what? The devil will always tell you this is not a good time. He's always going to tell you it's not and he's going to tell you next year, but when next year comes, he will tell you it's not a good time. He will always tell until God calls you home. He will always tell you it's not a good time. So if you've not signed up, you're still welcome to sign up. And then on Ash Wednesday, we're going to all fast together because it's a day of fast, not only from meat, but also from food. And guess what we'll be having after Mass, 5:30 on Ash Wednesday? We'll break our fast together, so there will be soup and bun after Mass. I think tickets for the soup and bun will be sold after Mass. Right, Donna? Who's selling the tickets today? Okay, Annette. Okay. It's free for the priest, but for everyone else, and the kids 6 and under, they have to pay. I've been classified as 6 and under, so that's okay. As long as I don't pay, that's okay. Those are all the activities for you to calibrate this Lent. Think about it. Which one are you going to do? You got time, 10 days. You can't have the excuse to say, I didn't know about it. They should have told me earlier. Well, you got 10 days. Put it in your calendar, because every important thing goes into your calendar. And if your soul is important, eternity is important to you, it should also go into your calendar. So I'd like to invite Phil up to come, just give us a best view of what the rescue project is going to look like, what to expect, especially for better view, especially for those who have signed up, or those who are still sitting on the fence and they haven't made up their mind. Maybe this is going to help you.